we have China, Russia, the US, and Russia and the US are probably 90% of the warheads. I've seen some figures that's about of all the in the world, but there are other countries, and we have some questions from our audience about these other countries. So Michelle Matei, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, asks about Iran and their nuclear program and how that's going to affect Israel. So, do we look to Iran? What other countries should we be looking at? And is North Korea really a threat to us? At one time, like how much can we look at, right? Like how do we prioritize, basically?
Well, there's the matter of the so-called near peer competitors, and where nuclear weapons are concerned, Russia is as close as it gets to a peer competitor with the United States. Again, as I said earlier, there's been this long-standing position in both our countries that we would strive for parity. We would have an approximate balance. Our force structures aren't identical. We have some, as we call it, freedom to mix. They tend to prefer to deploy ICBMs, and the US prefers to deploy sea launch systems, ballistic missiles. It just has to do with our, Russia's a great land power. So of course it deploys more land-based systems, and the US as a naval power, more sea-based systems. So there is that difference there, but generally there's a parity between our two countries. China way lower at the moment, but we fear maybe driving toward that parity as well. So again, we have to keep a sharp eye on that and watch what's going on. Where North Korea is concerned, I honestly have been very perturbed in the last week as they've been rolling out. You probably saw the TV presentations in the last week of all the firepower now and the missiles and so forth that DPRK is deploying. It's not big on numbers. They're not deploying a lot of missiles or a lot of warheads, but obviously they are striving for a kind of global stature with regard to their systems. So I do think it's high time to get back into negotiations with them, because they're also suffering. Kim Jong-un himself has said, been very oddly, it's different now coming from Pyongyang leader, but he's been honest to say that they're suffering from a great deal of famine, crops failing, COVID, although they aren't admitting much about COVID, but they're suffering a lot on the domestic front. So he could be looking for some relief. It could be a good moment. I think it is a good moment to go to the negotiating table with North Korea. On Iran, we've got this effort afoot for the United States to rejoin the so-called JCPOA. I do think that's important to get that agreement back on track again, because the Iranians are doing everything they can to push that envelope and to maximize their own negotiating position by taking the level of enrichment of uranium right up to the borderline, where we begin to be very concerned that they're enriching fissile material for a bomb program rather than for a nuclear power plant, which they always say that's what they're doing. So I do think it's going to be important to get them back to the table. It's interesting when you ask about the Israelis and what their stance has been. Of course, the previous Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, was very, very opposed to the JCPOA. We will see how it goes with this new government under Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. He's calling, as the questioner asked, Michelle asked, on the UN Security Council to take action against Iran. And I think the UN Security Council will be definitely willing to support this effort to get the JCPOA moving again. It remains to be seen then what attitude Israel will take to a reborn JCPOA. I do hope, and I think it's necessary in moving toward a rebirth of the JCPOA to also get some constraints in other places like the Iranian long-range missile program.
Are there any other areas of the world that we should be looking at in terms of countries that may be posturing or, looking at the map? You have India, you have France, UK. What are some of their positions or partnerships with us?
Well, the South Asian states of Pakistan and India are in a nuclear standoff. They both tested nuclear weapons. They've also deployed some nuclear weapon systems. So we are concerned that they are in this very short warning relationship, very short warning of attack relationship that could be highly destabilizing. So I constantly worry about the standoff between India and Pakistan. But here we do have a more complex situation as well, because India doesn't really pay that much attention to Pakistan. At least they don't say they pay attention to Pakistan's nuclear capability. They say that they are deterring China. And they focus on, as they see it, the Chinese nuclear deterrent. Pakistan, in turn, has a very decent working relationship with China. And so I think as more action shifts from the Pacific to the Indian Ocean, this could be a recipe for some potential nuclear crises in that area of the world. And it's something I think we should all be paying more attention to, and ensuring that we're pushing back against such a possibility. Where the other two nuclear weapon states under the NPT are concerned, the UK and France, of course, they pursue a different approach. They don't try to build up to become peer competitors of the Russian Federation for a long time. They pursued what we call assured second strike deterrence. They put their missiles and their warheads at sea where they can be hidden. And they say that they will assure retaliation. They will assure the ability to destroy Moscow if the Russians should ever attack them with nuclear weapons. So that's how they deter that it is a, as they say, second strike retaliatory capability, not a balance of terror, a balance of first strike deterrent forces.